Hey everybody, KC here. So I have to say, I don't really envy people who lead organizations these days, whether the organizations are 12 people, 120 people, 1,200 people, or 12,000 people. The leaders in those organizations at various levels, there's so many more things they have to deal with today than they used to have to deal with. There's so much more nuance that they have to deal with, right? It used to be, you're worried about performance reviews, you're worried about raises, you throw a couple of parties every year to make sure that everybody's morale was good, and that was pretty much it, right? It's not that way anymore. One of the things that got me thinking about this was the directive that went out in Texas about saying that any parent who helps a trans child with gender-affirming care can now be investigated for child abuse. And let's put the specifics of that away for a second, okay? This is probably not the place to deal with them. Longtime readers of Morning Newsbeat, you'll know how I feel about it. But let's put that aside and just think about the fact that what if you work for a company in Texas, and you're in Texas, and you have a trans child or a trans relative? What if you're trans? And suddenly it would not seem like a very friendly place to work, whether you're working for a CPG company, you're working for a retailer down there. I think it would be pretty hard to hold on to somebody under those circumstances. At the same time, what if you're in Texas and you want to attract somebody from another state to move to Texas? And suddenly, if they have a trans child, for example, or they happen to be trans, they're going to look at you and say, I don't think I'm moving to Texas. Same goes in Florida with their no say gay law, prohibiting teachers in primary schools from even dealing with children along gender issues if the child is really troubled. They don't want teachers to be able to talk to them about that. Again, if you're gay, you have gay children, you're living in Florida, maybe it's going to be an unfriendly place for you to be. Or how are you going to attract somebody to Florida if somebody has those circumstances? And by the way, it's not just those kinds of laws. What if you come from a state that has a gun culture, a robust gun culture? Are you going to be able to be attracted to New York or Connecticut or Massachusetts? It's, attracting people and keeping people now because of all these social and political issues. It's just so much harder than it used to be. I was also thinking about it over the last couple of days, because what if you're working in an organization and you have somebody working for you who's Ukrainian, right? Their families may be in terrible, terrible danger right now. They may have lost relatives. And as a leader, you just can't say, well, that's not part of what I need to deal with. You have to deal with that. What if you have people who are Ukrainian and Russian on your staffs, in your stores, as employees, maybe even as customers? You have to be concerned about those kinds of issues. It just requires such a higher level of compassion, of the ability to nurture, that I think a lot of leaders maybe, they weren't trained for this, and yet they have to deal with these issues on a day-to-day basis. At the end of the day, it seems to me, and it's like, what was the old line about Winston Churchill, right? Never let a crisis go to waste. Yeah, but this is getting ridiculous because it's one crisis after another. Leaderships have to be prepared for that. And to me, the bottom line is you need to create a culture of caring, right? That's the bottom line. If you start from that premise, then the other stuff is going to maybe not work itself out, but it'll at least give you a real values-oriented and ethical foundation from which to deal with all the various issues that you as a leader have to deal with going forward. It's really tough, and like I say, I don't envy any of these folks. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this morning, and as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.